You are now listening.
You are now listening to the Black Male Educators Alliance podcast.
Lifting our voices.
Lifting our voices.
Welcome back. We are back, season 3. The BME Lifting Our Voices, the BMEA podcast. I think it's been about 2 months since we closed out season 2. I see Chris got new eyewear for season 3. So
yeah.
Gentlemen, how's the summer been? Summer break.
Man, went by fast. I feel like every educator says that. Even in the pandemic, it went by fast, I would say.
Yeah, being here in Detroit, it was a up and down summer, we'll say. And for some of us, it was a very wet summer. Me in my basement. Did you guys have any issues with the floods?
Yep. I have some water in the basement too.
Yeah, you good?
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Same.
Yeah, let me know who helped you with yours.
I was gonna say, thankfully, I didn't have any issues at my own home, but
yeah,
I have family that stay on the east side, same part of town as Jerry, and my parents' house, my sister's house, aunts. So I was over there trying to be a handyman, and
I think the worst part about it, like whatever, everybody has, weather issues. It seems to be happening a lot more these days, but it was the day of like the night that before summer break was really supposed to start. Like that Friday night we were done with work and it was about to be the summer. That's when it happened. It was just the timing of it was extra hurtful. But otherwise, it's a hot summer right now. It's very hot here for those of you who are doing it.
Expensive too.
Yeah, well, no. Is it more expensive, or did we just forget how expensive outside was?
Yeah. I did not like going to the gas station at all. I got real bougie in my staying at home vibes. It's good to be outside, but I think we forgot. No, I'm pretty sure prices rose a little bit.
Something's different.
Mm-hmm. I would say for me, I'm jumping ahead, but like over the whole pandemic, I spent so much money on food and Uber Eats. Having kids home all day, so I'm just ready for them to go to school. Like, we can bypass summer because they've been home eating and leaving mess. So that's been my summer.
So I guess we kind of started with some lowlights of summer. Any highlights? Any trips? Anybody do anything fun?
Well, I did something. We went to Grand Rapids. I have a cousin who stays there, so she wanted to host everyone there. So it was a group of about maybe like 10 to 15 of us. Parents and their kids went out there. We ended up driving to Muskegon, to a beach in Muskegon. So that was kind of cool just to get out there, kids playing in the sand, water. So that was probably the highlight of the summer from a family perspective for me.
Right.
Yeah, I spent some good family time. I went to Florida, see some family, and then I was in Atlanta and Houston. A couple of warm spots. I'm vaccinated and
Mike was outside. Like,
I feel like a little trip, but I was good though. Just staying safe and social distancing in other cities. That's all.
You said Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Huh?
Yeah. So they're not doing well right now, but when I was there, they were okay.
Word. I don't think I didn't get really anywhere this summer. I'm gearing up. For those of you who don't know, I'm a big Baltimore Ravens fan.
Yeah.
So I have season tickets for this upcoming year. So I'll be back and forth to Baltimore a lot. And so that's really my summer. Will start this fall on the weekends.
Are you going to the game here in Detroit?
Oh yeah, of course. You going?
Thinking about it. Actually, I probably won't. That's my youngest daughter's birthday, the 26th. My friend hit me up like, "Hey, let's get tickets." I was like, "Yes, let's do it." Yeah. And I remembered like, you know what? I have a birthday, and my oldest daughter's the day before, so like that whole weekend, I'm just,
oh man,
just count me out.
Yeah,
count me out.
Well, I'll be at Ford Field if you need me. So what's new with BMEA? I know there's been a lot of work being put in over the summer. Mike, you want to talk a little bit about what's new with us?
Yeah, BMEA, we try to follow the school schedule, so we at least get a little bit of a break in the summer with the work. But we started a principal wellness fellowship. Shout out to Dr. Lewis, our CEO, who's been heading that. And we have the Early Career Teacher Fellowship starting in September 25th. So the application is open right now. If you know any new teachers, men or women, it's now co-ed, because we just know how important it is for everyone to be effective teachers. And so we wanted to open it up. New teachers from years 1 to 3, go ahead and apply, bmeamichigan.org/opportunities. And like I said, the sessions will start on September 25th. So really excited about that. We're going to have a fellowship mixer. So all open to everyone. We want to just have a time to get our fellows back together to meet and, fellowship a little bit before the school year. Well, when the beginning of the school year, and as well as introduce new people to our network. So excited for that. And that'll be in September. So look out for those flyers as well.
And so, Chris or Mike, I know that the principal fellowship, the wellness fellowship, that the apps are closed and the folks have been selected. But can we talk a little bit just about that's the newest fellowship and what that seeks to offer the fellows?
Well, the principal fellowship is really about mental health and wellness, and like really making sure that principals are taking care of themselves. So that's important. That administrative role is a heavy lift, and so BMEA, in our mind, in terms of retaining educators and retaining administrators, we got to make sure that they're taking care of themselves. So Dr. Lewis couldn't be with us today, busy man, but I know next time we get a chance to see him, he'll be able to explain a little bit more about what he's been able to do in that fellowship.
So, this being our third season, I know we started off season 2 with sort of like, we were headed into the COVID school year and a back to school episode. And I feel like, are we okay to call this the second annual back to school episode?
Yeah.
I think that sounds all right. We do something twice. The annual.
Bring
it up a little bit. So for our viewers and listeners, it's a very special episode. It's our second annual back to school episode, and we have some great guests today. In Detroit, our kids can choose what districts they want to be a part of, and so we have 3 wonderful CEO superintendents from different districts in the city that we will get to. But before we jump into that, we would be remiss if we didn't give a little pop culture. And before the show, we were talking a little bit about this crate challenge, and Chris mentioned that he felt like he had the athletic prowess to get to the other side of the crates. You want to talk about the approach you would take, Chris?
Yeah, well, first I had to inspect the grass. I want to make sure that it's as level as possible.
So it's not really about your athletic prowess, and more about the conditions.
Oh, no. Well, that's the variable we know already, my athletic prowess. That's not a question. But the ground and the quality of the crates, those are like specific variables that could vary based on who's setting it up. You know what I'm saying? So we know I'm in pretty good shape, but we got to make sure the other conditions are, at a certain level. And I think that's what a lot of people underestimate.
All right. So Mike, if it was your turn for the crate challenge, are you more concerned about the crates, or are you more concerned about the ground?
So I'm not doing no concrete crate challenge. It has to be the grass or somewhere soft. I saw that one guy doing it inside the gym on that padding. He was smart. Yeah. To me, the crates got to be all the same crate and spotters. The crates got to be all the same crate. I'm not doing the mix and match crates. You got the blue and red and black. Like, no, all the same crates. And honestly, by this point, you know how the world is with social media. They're probably making crates just for the crate challenge at this point. Yeah. So, I want the brand new, sturdy, symmetrical crates, and I'll do it.
I feel it. All right. So I got this other question. We had our first, via PD week this week, and we asked our teachers this question. I want to get your guys' thoughts on it. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No. I'm going to tell you why. So a hot dog by itself, what is not a sandwich? If you put a hot dog on a bun, that bun isn't like top, meat, bottom, right? It is kind of connected, and then like the hot dog is sitting in the crevice of it. Mm-hmm. So it's not an actual sandwich where you get the bread as the bottom and then the ingredients in the middle, and then you have the thing on top, and then you get the 2 hands like that.
Chris, real quick, you gotta.
Yeah, I seen someone say that we consider subs a sandwich, therefore we should consider a hot dog a sandwich. I saw some similarities in the design of those two foods. So I'm gonna go with yes, it's a sandwich.
So one of the teachers went deep into the internet and found that in New York City, for sales tax purposes, they do not consider a hot dog a sandwich. So, you know, if you care what New York City thinks about things, then maybe that will, you know, influence your answer. But I just wanted to run that by you, see where your guys' heads were. Season 3, episode 1. We were a little ignite our brains a little bit. All right. So with this being our second annual back to school episode, like I have mentioned, we have 3 wonderful school superintendents on our podcast tonight.
All women too.
Shout out.
And so we're excited for our guests. And so we're gonna jump right in. I got to get my notes because our first guest is Mrs. Alicia Merriweather, but her title, this is why I got to get the notes, is Deputy Superintendent of Partnership and Innovation for Detroit Public Schools Community District. And so I know what my first question for Miss Merriweather will be when she gets on, is if she has a nickname for her title. But without further ado, let's please bring in Mrs. Merriweather.
Good evening.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I enjoyed the pre-talk, the crate challenge, a hot dog, a sandwich. Those are easier questions than some of the ones we're facing about going back to school. But my abbreviated title would just be P&I. So it's Partnerships and Innovation, but Deputy Superintendent of P&I, Partnerships and Innovation.
That's much easier. Thank you. How are you tonight?
I'm well, thank you. It is good to see everyone again, and that everyone is doing well. Flood everything aside, you're in good health, and
we're still working our way back. But
that's right.
Yeah, it could be worse. And I think we mentioned that this being the second back to school episode, we could say annual. And I think if you've been on the show twice, you're officially a friend of the show. So
yes,
thanks for joining us again.
Thank you for the invitation. My pleasure.
Absolutely. Chris, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, let's jump in. So we spoke some months ago, and we know things have been evolving. So start us off with, what are some lessons that you've learned from the pandemic, and how has it maybe reshaped your thinking around how we engage students in their learning?
It's a really good question. I mean, I think ultimately a number of things have been reinforced, right? So we know relationships matter. We know the relationship between a teacher and students in the classroom setting matters. We know that face-to-face instruction, where teachers and counselors and secretaries and engineers and custodians and principals have eyes on students, matters, because there's things that you can pick up on in the physical face-to-face environment that are much more difficult to track in the virtual. And so I would say, you know, as a former middle school teacher from the east side of Detroit, when you think about just all the things that happen in a classroom beyond, I taught science, beyond science, everything else that goes on in a classroom that you're observing, you're taking in, you're watching, you notice little things about what a student is wearing or their demeanor. I think one of the things we learned through this, you know, those things are much harder to pick up on in the virtual environment and among adults. I mean, same thing. You know, there's things that you pick up on from people face to face that is much, much harder in the virtual environment. I think the importance of a growth mindset has been reinforced. You know, anyone who is in a fixed mindset that it is what it is, and, you know, I'm not going to change. This was not the year for you. This last year was all about pivoting. It was all about changing. It was about adapting. It was about a growth mindset. And we talk about, you know, a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, but this was growth mindset in action. Like, can I change? Can I modify? Can I take in information and adjust? And I think the other thing I would say is just really the reminder that students learn in different ways. So in actuality, when in DPSCD, we gave families 3 choices. They could engage virtually, they could engage face-to-face, or they could come to the learning center where they had their computer, they were logged in, and they were under the supervision of a district employee. And what we know is that for most students, the virtual environment just was not successful. When we look at the growth and we look at some other factors, Now, I will say some of the tests that were taken at home in the virtual environment with the parental assistance did show some growth, but there's some other things that we look at that say, okay, this was not great for kids. But we do have some students that the virtual environment actually is a preference of theirs. And I think it's one of those things that you have to look at lessons learned out of a horrible situation. I just want to be clear there. It's hard to kind of say these are things that came out of COVID that are positive, because COVID itself and just the damage it's done in our city and really the loss that so many people have had. It's really hard to say that there are positive things that came out of this pandemic. But in all actuality, we've modified some things. And, there are families and there are kids who say, you know what, the virtual environment works better for me. And so this year, the district is actually opening a virtual school, and that is an option for families. And we also have all of our schools, brick and mortar schools, open face-to-face. So one thing we learned is that for some families, the virtual environment is a better option for them. And we're allowing them to do that for the most part. There are a couple exceptions, like for career technical education, that will not be available virtually, right? So culinary arts and auto certification, those are face-to-face. Our Montessori is face-to-face, and our world language, like our specialty schools, Flicks and Academy of the Americas, and that's more about teacher service. We just cannot have double staff in those specialty areas. But everything else, families can choose the virtual option, and they will be enrolled in the virtual school. They'll have the option of returning to their home school in 1 year. So we'll hold their spot for a year because some people are just not ready to come back yet. But the virtual school has a virtual principal, virtual teachers. It's completely separate. So we're taking that strain off of the principals of running 3 different schools simultaneously. Let them focus on the brick and mortar, and then the virtual principal run the virtual school. So those are some things that I would say we learned. And the only other thing I would add is it is super important to listen. And so as things were evolving over the year with access to technology, with access to resources, we opened up the family resource hubs because we heard from families, we need this. We held listening sessions virtually. We had more attendance in the last year on virtual engagements than we've seen previously. And I don't think we're going to change that. I think parent-teacher conferences were virtual. And the feedback I got from teachers, it was the most parents they had ever had log in. Well, because you're at work and you can log in for your 15-minute spot and you're done. So I think there's a lot of things we learned in the last year that I hope will kind of move forward as we go into the new school year.
Thank you. I really appreciate how you brought up, the students that benefited from the virtual learning, because I think that's one part that really gets overshadowed a lot, and that it was a tough experience for a lot of students. But this idea or misconception that virtual learning is terrible for all students wasn't true, because I do know that some students did benefit from it. So I'm glad you brought that up. And you also brought up the new virtual school, which was actually leading to my next point, which was my question was what are some things that you are looking forward to this year for the district, and what are some things that are maybe exciting opportunities for families and students?
And so definitely the opening of the virtual school is a big highlight. I think for families, they're really excited about that option. But our biggest highlight for me is face-to-face instruction and our schools being open again. Really, 107 schools back open for face-to-face instruction. That is the biggest highlight. Now, I will say this, because you can't talk about face-to-face without COVID safety. So to be clear, the district is being very, very strict about our COVID mitigation strategies. And so one of my divisions that I supervise is our Office of School Health and Wellness. So our Chief Health Officer and our Senior Director of Nursing and our 100+ nurses all report up under that office, and COVID monitoring and management comes up under that office. So I'm very close to all of the data around COVID. And what I can tell you is in the last year, we learned that if you implement with fidelity the strategies that have been outlined, so masks, social distancing, increased hand washing, hand sanitizing, electrostatic cleaning at night, daily screeners, temperature checks, all of that, contact tracing, if you can do cohorts, all of those things were in place last year, the entire year, for the students who were face-to-face. And what's very interesting is across 107 buildings and central office, at the end of the year, we had only 20 examples of transmission that happened from person to person. By state definition, that is an outbreak. If you have two people that are connected that aren't family, that's an outbreak. And across the entire district for all of last year, there were 20 instances, and most of them were just 2 to 3 people, and half of them were with adults. And so what we look at is, okay, we can do this. It doesn't mean there's not going to be any COVID. But what do you put in place to do as much prevention as possible? So the additional thing that the district is adding that families can look forward to is the option to be tested weekly for COVID at their school using a saliva test. So we have contracted, and it's mandatory for employees, but we switched to the saliva test instead of nasal because it's a weekly thing and a lot of people don't like the nasal. So we are doing a weekly saliva test for all employees, all contractors, all volunteers. If you are in our building on a weekly basis, you will be tested. And that gives us the ability to look at the district positivity rate. Do you understand? Like, so we can look at Michigan. And for those of you who don't know, Michigan right now is above 8% transmission. You can look at Detroit, which is above 5%. And you can look at the district, which right now is at 0.3%. We can look at all of our employees and how many are testing positive. And then with students, they have to have parental consent, but that is every week. And then we are also making accommodations for young people who have special needs in terms of if they can't produce saliva, we can do an alternate collection. But that is the additional piece. And then, of course, continuing to work with the health department to provide access to the vaccine. We have offered clinics all summer, and we will continue to do that.
So before you go, Miss Merriweather, this is the hardest question: is a hot dog a sandwich?
Well, you already said that New York said it isn't.
We're in Michigan.
We're in Michigan. I would have to say that I do not think it is a sandwich. And for the reasons that were outlined by Mike, I think he had a good kind of analysis. I think he was also the one that had the scientific approach to the crate challenge, the ground, the crates. We've got a scientist here with the variables controlling. So I'm going to go with Mike's perspective. It's not a sandwich. And
that's why she's my favorite guest. I've said that before. Favorite returning guest.
Oh, wow.
So
this guy.
You think you have the athletic prowess to complete the crate challenge?
Well, see, that's the wrong question. The question is, do you have the mental acumen to make a decision as to whether or not that's a right choice? That's the first question.
Yeah.
So I actually just saw this the other day, and I was like, what in the world? But you know what? Hey, milk crates, I guess it's a creative piece. It's people outside getting creative, better than playing video games, I think. Maybe the emergency room will disagree.
Yeah, right. There's no space. Anyway, Miss Mary, thank you for having us, or us. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. That's what happens when you're friends of the show. It's all good.
And shout out to the great work that you all are doing, like with the being safe, and you definitely shared a lot of awesome stuff. So hopefully listeners taking something away from that. So we appreciate it.
I hope so. And a special shout out to all of the teachers and the principals, the parents, everyone who has worked so hard in the last year. And we're in this together. So I really, really hope and pray this next year is a better year for everyone. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, friend of the show. All right. So that's one down.
Yeah, I'm 1-0 right now. I just want you to know. We'll see what the other two say, but I'm 1-0.
Did I even answer the question?
I don't know. You two sound like you're sandwich guys, though. So we'll see. Chris came with the sub. Someone did come with the sub. The sub theory, that's tough.
Listen, how about this? An American taco. That's what somebody called the hot dog the other day. American taco. Feel that?
We'll come back to that. Let's
So moving right along, we want to bring in our second guest. She is the CEO of University Prep Schools. I do.
Yeah, Jerry, he got the special light, so I noticed it too. I wasn't gonna call him out. He got that skin, he got the skin popping over.
He got the good cocoa butter over there too.
Yeah. Hey, look, season 3, you have to step it up just a
You're
Uh-huh.
little.
right. No, look, I'm gonna get the cut. I'll be ready next time.
Yeah. Okay.
Me too.
CEO University Prep Schools, and second time on the show, so friend of the show, Danielle Jackson.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you guys again.
Good
Welcome
to see
back.
you too. How are you?
I am doing well, ramping up to the first day of school. So excited to be here to talk about all of the, the great work that folks in this industry of educating little people and big little people are doing to return kids to in-person learning.
Awesome.
Excellent. Want me to jump in?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. So, since the last time we had you on the show, let me actually move you up there. Yeah, there we go. Keep our hosts up top. It's been a lot going on. I know that you've had to navigate a lot of different variables, being virtual, having some online. Maybe you could talk a little about what some of the things that the district did over the summer, what you learned from that experience, and also like what are you taking into this school year?
Yeah, great question, Chris. One of the things that I'm very proud of that University Prep was able to do is stay committed to our mission and vision. It can be very easy to abandon everything that you've been doing and when a crisis hits. And certainly this pandemic was definitely is a crisis, has been and was. And so what we decided to do over the summer was revisit our commitment to project-based learning. And so what we understood is that we had to address the loss of time. I don't like to use the word learning loss because you can't lose what you did not learn. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to figure out how can you take advantage of the time that you have and spiral in the content that we weren't able to address because we were managing the virtual space. And so we learned a lot of lessons. We reignited the passion for learning. Our kids were just really enjoying the opportunity to re-engage in in-person learning. Then it also offered us an opportunity to test our mitigation efforts as we did in fourth quarter to make sure as we welcome back all of our kids in the fall, we were ready with all of our health measures in place to both address health and safety while also reacclimating ourselves back into our learning spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. And just thinking about what you mentioned about the vision and maintaining that, like what part of what, the mission and vision of U Prep Schools are you looking forward to seeing in action now that students are back in person and kind of not continue business as usual, but moving forward from that new space of virtual learning?
Yeah, I have to tell you, Mike, and Alicia mentioned this too, relationships really became the linchpin to pivoting from in-person learning into the virtual space. And it was clear, and as we were progress monitoring how things were going last year, it was clear that because we had invested and had equity in the relationships with our families and with our scholars, we were able to pivot. And as we were trying to figure out the virtual space, we were able to keep our kids engaged, keep our families engaged. And we monitored, like we literally graded ourselves every month because we wanted to understand how the experience from our family's perspective was going. And we were able to see, we were getting really good grades with that. And so we were able to then parlay that into how we were approaching our return to in-person learning. I also will say what we affirmed, we knew prior to the pandemic that we needed to push our work around student engagement. And so what we understood during the virtual space and in our fourth quarter reopening in summer school is we wanted to leverage what we've learned in the virtual space to be part of just who we are. I mean, the reality it is our kids have been showing us in their cell phones, when kids started typing papers on their cell phones, if you all remember that, and they were walking around like doing their essays on cell phones. And we were like, what? Like, how do you even do that? They were signaling to us that there was this lever that we could be pulling that would really engage them. And so what the pandemic forced us to do was a very unfortunate package, but what it forced us to do was really reimagine what's possible and what mediums of tools that we can use to make learning exciting.
So we're headed, school year is right around the corner. Obviously, there's a lot of different feelings and emotions around the return to the buildings for a lot of our families in the city. So what steps are you prep schools taking to contain the virus and try our best to, remain in school and have our kids healthy and learning?
Yeah, I remember as we were moving throughout the year, I was very present and the team was very present with changing the hearts and minds of folks. This was a scary ordeal for all of us. We have crew members within our community who lost loved ones. We lost a student, Skylar, who was a kindergarten at Mark Murray. So we learned early on in this pandemic the consequences of the virus. And so we really want to make sure we're focusing on psychological health. And so while we know that there's going to be a lot of talk about assessment, where are the kids, where's the gap? What do we need to do? We've made a commitment to focus on the trauma that this pandemic has caused. So when we think about the first 30 days of school, we will be addressing the hearts, the minds, and the spirits of our scholars, as well as our families, to make sure that we can start to return back to what our new normal will be. And of course, in addition to addressing our social emotional wellness, we have our pandemic safeguards in place, universal masking. We have a weekly testing available and the vaccine available to our families. We had a vaccination drive yesterday, saw a lot of our kiddos coming through to get their vaccinations. We'll continue to push vaccination education because we know that it's a very personal choice for our families to make. But we're going to do whatever we can to continue to keep us safe. Again, the cleaning and hygiene protocols will be in place, daily screening. And I'll say adaptability, because what we know about this virus is that it's unpredictable. And so we are always looking at our data to understand when we need to pivot and change and keep that line of communication open from our families to us so that we can understand where we might need to tighten things, and where appropriate, where we may be able to loosen up a little bit.
So Danielle, before we go in, we're going to ask you the hot dog question too, but it's important, and we know that the BMEA Principal Fellowship is working with school leaders to make sure that they're taking care of themselves. But did you get out this summer and allow yourself some time to rest and recuperate, to charge your battery for this year?
I absolutely did. And I have to say this to all of our leaders out here who may be listening. I think I definitely took some time, but one of my regrets is I didn't take that reflection, quiet moment to think about how I experienced the pandemic. We are such servant, for those of us who are servant leaders, you work so hard to make sure that everybody else is okay. And it was almost like by the time we got back to school, it was like, oh my God, this happened to me too. And so my advice, particularly for the principal fellowship that you guys have going, I think it's so important that leaders take care of themselves. And taking care of yourself is, as much as it's a staycation or a vacation, I think it's also that quiet space to allow yourself to feel all of the feelings that were associated with leading through such a challenging time.
And I hope everyone, Chris especially, appreciated the shameless plug again for the Principal Wellness Fellowship. And so thank you for answering that question. So Danielle, before you go, we want your thoughts. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Absolutely not.
Wow. You have to justify.
Can you classify it any kind of way, or is it just in the league of its own?
It's in a league. Thank you, Chris. Because to me, it's just in a league. It's in a league of its own. A hot dog is a hot dog. If we wanted it to be a sandwich, we would call it a sandwich. We call it a hot dog.
But all right. But is a po' boy a sandwich? Because essentially, it is the same situation where the bread opens up and everything is in the middle.
But that's the thing. A po' boy can be called a po' boy. Why can't a hot dog be called a hot dog? Why must we pigeonhole things into one category?
Trying to box it in.
Right, you're trying to box it in. Be flexible. Let the hot dog have its own identity.
Okay. Okay. And one last thing before you go, man. This is really it. Do you have any advice for our crate challengers out here? Besides, don't
do it. I mean, I just recently caught on to this last week because I didn't even know it was a thing. Yeah. And my mouth was open as I saw video after video of people. First of all, I thought crates were much sturdier than that. I'm not going to lie. I was like, of course you can do it.
But that's part of it. You have to have sturdy crates.
But here's one thing I will say. What I noticed is that there was definitely a pattern on the age group that was trying the crate challenge. And I just don't see anyone my age doing it. So, just
wisdom. So on that note, Danielle, we appreciate you joining us today. Again, this is your second time with us. So you too are officially a friend of the show. So please don't hesitate to join us again. And of course, good luck to everyone at University Prep Schools this school year.
All right. Thank you, guys. Great being on the show.
Right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
We're working our way through. Any quick reflection so far and anything you guys have heard, anything that stood out to you?
Just a lot of good information. I think what both leaders have shown is there's a lot of thoughtfulness that goes into decisions. I think it's great to hear from school leaders in the city on how they're navigating this. And I'm kind of just sitting back taking notes on some of it, honestly. So
yeah, I think what's awesome about it is, when we get into the school year, obviously everybody wants to have all their classrooms full and we're pulling from the same city of kids and all of that. But I think what I love hearing is that everybody seems to be student first, right? And their approach to the reopening. And so I think Detroit will be in good hands as we open the school year up. Go ahead, Mike.
And I think people really underestimate all that goes into planning like a safe opening. You know what I mean? Like I cannot imagine, all the things that you need to plan for, like the testing, the mask, like the sanitation, all those things that that's a lot of something new to add on, which is already a lot to do in terms of running a district. And so, kudos to both of them for sure.
And stuff that a lot of us were never really trained to do, right? Yeah. We're trying to figure it out as we do it. So shout out to Alicia and Danielle so far. And of course, last but not least, we want to bring in Erica Robertson, CEO of Promise Schools. Erica, welcome to the show. Dr. Robertson, welcome to the show.
Hello. Hi, guys. Thanks for having me here. I'm just so excited to jump in on this hot dog conversation. I hope we can take that question first.
Right. Let's do. How about we kick it off with that? Let's do this. Let's switch it up. Is it a sandwich or not?
So, I had to do my research as you guys were talking about, is a hot dog a sandwich or not? And the first thing I will say is we should be rethinking eating hot dogs in general, but that's another conversation. But I looked up in the Oxford Dictionary, right? So the Oxford Dictionary defined a hot dog as two pieces of bread with meat or cheese as the filling in them. Okay. So it didn't really address because the hot dog bun is really not two pieces, it's one. So I'm like, okay, let me go further. So I went to the Webster Dictionary, right? And the Webster Dictionary said it's two or more slices of bread or a split roll having a filling in between. So I was like, okay, so I got two, conflicting pieces of information. So then I went to Wikipedia, which we know Wikipedia has all the facts, right? Like all the right facts. And it said a sandwich is a dish wherein bread serves as the container or wrapper. Okay, so that sounded like to me like, okay, a sandwich is. And then I said, let me just for fun, I'm just going to go to one more source, which was the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And it said a sandwich is meat or filling between slices of bread.
Oh,
she did her research.
I did my research.
So the schools are going to be okay.
If the kids don't know how to do anything, they're going to be able to look something up.
So based on that, it was kind of 2 and 2. And what I decided, because I want to be a friend of BMEA, I want to come back. I'm gonna let you guys break the tie. So those are my 4 data sources: 2 for, 2 against. You guys break the tie.
Well, I think the tie's already been broken. It seems like Mike's approach to the hot dog is the approach. It's not a sandwich.
Okay.
She had the receipts though, like she had the receipts. I mean, the Department of Agriculture, what I will say, my final point, if your bun split, you had a split bun on a hot dog, you would not enjoy that hot dog the same way. So hey,
that's fair. I think that's fair. I think that's fair, Mike Payne.
You gotta feed that one to the bird. So Dr. Robinson, do you have a book? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I do have a book. I dropped a book last summer, actually, right in the middle of the pandemic, which was not intentional, but it happened. And this book is called The Adventures of a Little Black Detroit Girl, Homecoming. And it really is a story about the transformational power of love, faith, and friendship. And it's my story. And it's my story about growing up in Detroit, had some hard starts growing up, and through friendship, through faith, and through love, I was able to overcome those hardships and create a very remarkable life for me, my family, and those around me. And it's a young adult novel that I am trying to get in schools across the globe to show our young people that no matter how you start off, you can create whatever future you want. You're in charge of your own personal narrative. So it promotes self-care, it promotes resilience, it talks about trauma in a way that our young people can understand. And it really talks about being okay with asking for help, speaking up. And we see a lot of that happening today with, Simone Biles, with our tennis player Osaka, asking for help and being okay sharing with someone that something's going on and getting that help. And it was inspired because I lost both my mother and my sister to suicide because they didn't ask for help. They didn't raise their hand. They didn't confide in people what was going on. And so, as we see the suicide rates skyrocket among our young people, especially our young Black and brown people, I want to give them a tool to help them understand it's okay to share your story. It's okay to ask for help. And it's okay that you have a hard start. And those hard starts actually make you unstoppable when you get older. And to be an example to that. So yeah, that dropped last summer. U.S. Marines Toys for Tots just purchased 3,000 copies of it. We're going to distribute it across Southeast Michigan. The mayor of Livonia is coming out to promote it. It's going to be pretty cool. So yeah, good stuff.
That's exciting. Mm-hmm. And we appreciate you sharing that. I'm sure it's a great book. I'm actually interested in getting it.
I will send you a copy.
All right, here we go. She said that was for me, y'all. No. That was for me.
Yeah, 3 copies signed. Yep.
Excellent. We appreciate it. But obviously we know everyone's gearing up for the school year. Mm-hmm. We know this is unlike any other school year, just with the context of the pandemic. Walk us through a little bit of the journey, you being the CEO of Promise Schools. Mm-hmm. And if you want to talk a little bit about, the schools you have and who you serve, mm-hmm. in this answer, feel free. But just what are some lessons that you learned? How are you all? What's your approach to starting this new school year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great question. And my colleagues, now to say I have a tremendous amount of respect for both Alicia and Danielle, who has quickly become one of my favorite persons. She's so wise. I just actually took over as CEO of Promise Schools in February. So right, as we were trying to figure out what was next with the pandemic, do we keep our kids out? Do we bring them back to school? And what we, understood is just the pandemic was so unpredictable, in the spring. And our school leaders had decided, because we had high schools and K-8s, decided that it was in the best safety of students and the best safety of our staff to keep our kids out. And just with the back and forth, and just for consistency and continuity. But the one thing that I insisted on is, okay, this is happening in the spring, but we must get our scholars back this summer. We got to get them back. They're disengaged. If you look at the disengagement rate across all schools, greater than 50% of our scholars were absent 50% of the time. So the journey for me was really to talk to scholars and find out why, they were so disengaged from the virtual learning, and to understand what it would take to bring them back. So one of my first tasks with my leadership team and the leadership team at our schools, and specifically Jalen Rose Leadership Academy, is we went out and we actually conducted focus groups, and we brought scholars out of the house, we brought them to restaurants, we brought them to different venues, and sat and talked with them to ask them, hey, why are you so disengaged? What happened? What's going on? And how do we bring you back? And what we found out was just some really interesting, because kids will tell you the truth. And so what we found out was a few really interesting facts. And they all stemmed around the social piece, the emotional piece, and the academic piece. So socially, we learned, just like Alicia said and what Danielle said, our kids are social beings. And they kind of talked about that connection between the teachers, which our scholars desperately missed, but they missed connecting with their friends. So they were depressed, right? They felt alone. They had anxiety. They had stress. And they said, hey, we just felt like we were so alone. And they wanted to come back. So we said, well, how many of you guys would come back this summer if we offered a full summer school experience for you guys? And everyone said that they would come back to summer school. And we offered summer school, and 95% of our scholars who needed to come back for summer school came back to summer school to recover that learning. The second thing that we learned, and we kind of knew, but the pandemic helped us really understand it, is many of our scholars' homes, unfortunately, in the city are not conducive learning environments. There are a lot of things happening in our homes. And one of our scholars says to me, she was like, Miss Robertson, you know, we come to school to get away from home, because when we're at home, we're sucked into being the babysitter, being the caretaker, doing this, doing that. And they don't really have a place to really learn. So part of the thinking for me around, you know, the social component, these learning environments, is how do we create opportunities for our scholars to, because in the pandemic, this was like highlighted, but this rings true no matter if there's a pandemic or not. So how do we create spaces and places for our scholars to collaborate, hang out, socialize, learn, and be with each other outside of their home environment? And so we put together a couple pilot programs this summer. I'm just wrapping one up where I had a cohort of 15 scholars hanging out at the Detroit Golf Club, getting them some exposure, hanging out with their scholars, learning some things, getting some extra credits. And I think the last thing that I would say that I learned that we're really going to tackle, and I think Danielle talked about this, is the impact from a social emotional standpoint. We asked scholars, okay, when you come back, how do you want to learn? What do you want that to look like? And they said, hey, we want to collaborate more. We want to talk more. We want to have fun. And then they also said, but we want to understand some techniques to deal with anxiety. Like we feel stressed out. So kids know what's going on. And so part of what I understand now more so than ever is we have to equip our schools and our teachers and our educators with the tools to help our scholars unpack some of what's been going on in their lives during COVID, but and you know this, but even beyond COVID, right? Our kids have a lot of trauma, a lot of toxic stress that they bring with them that prevent them from learning. But the COVID really just helped us highlight it, re-emphasize it, and reprioritize, making sure we create these resilient spaces for our scholars.
Yeah, that's super important. I'm glad you brought that up, just in terms of, I think the focus group was a great idea, and really getting student voice. And I think that student voice is important, because I think we thought really about how are we operating to do our job and things, but it's like the kids' well-being is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
So just in terms of students, what is I guess one thing you are looking forward to this year with school opening and being back in person, just as a district? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I think I'll echo what my colleagues said before. Just seeing the kids, right? And so this summer was a blessing, because we had a chance to bring almost half of our scholars back in person, full-time summer learning. So just re-engaging, connecting, talking, hugging, sharing, right? Just being in their space, allowing them to be in each other's space. So looking forward to that full blown in the fall. But also looking forward to trying out some of the different models that our kids said they want. So for example, I shared with you that they said they want to have a little bit more collaboration with their peers in this work. So we're trying out some more project-based type learning, right? More collaboration type learning, which we know is the world in which we live. So part of the model, as well as moving toward more 21st century learning, which is project-based, which is internship-based, and bringing some corporate partners. And I will say this too, What I did learn in this pandemic, as we were trying to gather resources to make all this happen, we have some amazing businesses, local and national businesses, that want to be part of the education experience. So making sure that we bring them to the table because they want to be involved, they want to help our scholars and offer opportunities for our scholars through our partners in the business community as well.
And I know a lot of schools are putting a lot of similar safety measures in place to protect our students. But Dr. Robertson, if there is one particular safety measure that I wouldn't say that you're excited about, but that you feel like it is something that is really going to do a lot to help protect your students, can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the different precautions from just the hand wash, the temperature taking, the test taking, the monitoring, the data usage works. I think one thing, and I mean, if you like you said, if you can get excited about, but like moving to touchless bathrooms, right? Kids touch a lot of stuff. And they don't wash their hands. They don't think about it. So even if you have all these precautions, you have these masks, but the kids have nasty hands, they're touching their face, right? So trying to move more toward the touchless type, water faucets, the touchless bathroom, sinks and toilets to make sure that we're keeping our kids safe. But I do think that, the other precautions in addition to will also help our kids. And I do know at our high school at Jalen Rose, we did have several clinics, vaccination clinics this summer and leading up to school to help educate our families, to help get them vaccinated and prepare them to come back safely.
Well, Dr. Robertson, I think you have shut down the hot dog conversation for us for tonight. And so we appreciate all of your sources and citations. And I think Mike is very happy to know that he's right. The hot dog is not a sandwich. But we thank you for joining us today. Good luck to you, all your teachers, all your students over at Promise Schools. And we're going to get you back on here because
sure.
To be an official friend of the show.
Exactly.
Did
I make the cut?
Well, you are approaching friendship. We got to get you back. If those books get delivered, then automatic.
Oh, yeah. Well, there it is. Hey, consider it done. And I just want to say to you guys, listening in as you guys are warming up the first 10 minutes of the show, like it really is. And I've listened to you guys before in some different shows that you've done and different guests, but like listening in and just laughing and you just make it fun. And I was like, oh man, I have another hour, I have to work. But I was like, man, this is fun. Yeah. So thank you for really, bringing some energy and some excitement, to 7 o'clock at night, trying to do some work and do some good stuff.
Thank you.
That's why
we appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, take care.
You guys ready for school now?
Yeah.
I'm actually looking forward to this school year. Not to go on the whole tangent, but I'm excited to see kids back. I have being a parent too. Like I resonate with a lot of what was spoken to today, right? Like kids missing that social aspect, not knowing how to socialize, and of course, want to keep them safe. But yeah, I'm ready.
Kids are the best part of the job. So it really was a piece of me was gone, not being able to like interact with them in person. And then even going back this summer and working, and early in this school year, we had the bridge program. Seeing my kids, they got their growth spurts. Kids like a foot taller than they were last time I saw them. They got beards now.
Yeah, I hear you. The voice thing is crazy.
Yeah.
So no, I'm with you, Michael. I was gonna say, we talked a lot about the kids missing their friends and all that, and like you said, I think we get into this work for the kids, and so it was tough not having them around. But they're gonna be back, and they'll remind us exactly who they are very shortly. Mm-hmm. So I think that's it for tonight. Season 3, episode 1. Again, applications are open for the early career teaching fellowship. Is there a deadline on that, Mike?
Yes, it is. It was the 30th. We've extended it another week, so you guys will have some more time. So please let us know. Like I said, you can apply at BMEA.org/opportunities, open to men and women in their first 3 years of education.
Yeah.
Or thinking about it, or even think about it. If you're not even in the classroom, but you're thinking about it, please contact us to apply.
There's something to be said about being a part of a fellowship that exists outside of your employment, right? And really getting developed from people who are like-minded and doing the same work outside of your school. And so obviously we encourage anybody who's in the beginning parts of their career to explore that opportunity. So we're back at it in 2 weeks, huh?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
I think by then the NFL season will have kicked off, right?
Yeah. Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl winning season will have kicked off by then. Yes.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know.
And Mike, you don't have a team, right? You said you don't have a team.
No, this is what I say. I'm not a big of a Ravens fan as Jerry is, but I do root for the Ravens. I've rooted for them.
Everybody want to be Ravens fans.
But I'm a homegrown Giants fan. It just was tough to go through those Eli years after those Super Bowls. I just couldn't be proud about it. So
it's still gonna be tough for the Giants. But Chris, we haven't heard you say anything. What's up, man? Are you?
Well, listen. My Spartans are coming back stronger.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna bring. Listen, my Spartans coming back. All right, the Lions. We still in the we always rebuilding as the Lions. Okay, so
look, I hope the Lions all 16 only for the press conferences after the game with the coach.
Oh yeah. We got a wild guy as the coach. Yeah. So I can't say nothing about the Lions yet. I will. I know I'm going to tune in every Sunday.
Okay.
And hopefully we're decent.
You guys got a solid offensive line, so
So gentlemen, look, 2 weeks we will be back in the building. I look forward to coming back and talking with you all about the first couple of weeks of the school year. If in the between time, please share this out amongst your networks to all of our viewers. Please share this out to your network. Please subscribe, follow BMEA of Michigan. Chris, I miss anything?
Nope, that's good.
Fellowship mixer coming up in September. Look out for the flyer.
Look out for that. And so
thanks to everybody in the comment section. Yes, DJ, we Spartans over here, as we represent.
Wow. Oh, and Erica's backstage talking about.
I see. Man, what's
so
this?
Before do a fight on here, because this is a family show. I think it's time we sign up. We will see everybody in 2 weeks. This is Lifting Our Voices, a BMEA podcast.
You are now listening
to the Black Male Educators Alliance podcast.
Lifting our voices.
Lifting our voices.